kind of knew I was.
Hey folks, let's spend some time with some friends up north. I'm Ben Cominos from WHBY in Appleton. Joining us from WCPT in Chicago is Patty Vasquez, and from the Minocqua Brewing Company, here's Kirk Bankstead. We've got the usual suspects from our Substack page with us, as well as a special guest or two. Wherever you are, welcome, you're up north.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? It's Kirk Bankstead here with the Up North podcast. I am in the Minocqua Brewing Company tap room, our flagship tap room in Minocqua. We are getting ready for the opening of our summer season. We're only open in the summer, so I'm here building a stage outside. We are planting flowers, but I'm also running for governor. So I'm using these Up North podcasts to talk about politics in the state of Wisconsin and to talk about what I think we need to be doing right now that the governor currently isn't doing. But before we start today, I wanted to first cut in. There's been a wonderful bit of news that's happened over the last week where the Minocqua Brewing Company has helped bring the Watertown Wind Symphony, helped enable them to perform a song that their school board banned like 2 weeks ago. And, we offered to help let them perform it in our beer garden last week. And since then, we've raised about $65,000 for the band that will help them pay for instruments, because one of the ways that this school board was extra cruel was they said these kids, if they wanted to play in my beer garden, they couldn't use the school sponsored instruments. So we just decided we'd raise money so these guys could buy other instruments, but they've gotten instruments loaned to them for this concert that's both happening tonight. The same folks who are playing tonight are playing at the Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Watertown, and then they're coming to my place this Saturday, where we're going to have a big tent in our front parking lot because there's too many folks for our beer garden and back. Now, the reason I'm talking about this, I want to go straight to politics as soon as I can, but it is wild that I've been railing on mainstream media now for a couple years, and I've come to basically just rely on doing my own channels to be able to talk to people and tell people what I think, because it always seems like there's a narrative that a reporter chooses to tell, and the narrative is going to be the narrative no matter what the facts are. So this is what happened to me yesterday. There's obviously this has been a very fluid event, and I was asked to be able to do like a kind of a disclaimer for the kids, because we got a lot of kids coming from the band, but we don't want to have them get any repercussions towards the kids or towards the band director. So we called this group not the Watertown Wind Symphony, but a group of volunteer kids who included members of the band and guest artists. Guest artists is because some kids, it's Memorial Day weekend, some kids' families are out, and other kids' families didn't want them to participate because they were scared of the repercussions. So there's a bunch of kids coming from the band, but there's also other guest artists that are filling in because you need all the parts to play this very complicated song called A Mother of a Revolution. So I said that. It took about a minute for me to say, and then TMJ4 yesterday just took the clip that said the actual Watertown Wind Symphony won't be playing, period. They just took that clip. Like, it wreaked havoc for the folks who had been paying attention to our socials, and I had explained it all. And so now I had to deal with all these disgruntled folks because this TMJ4 clip somehow wanted to make it look negative that not every single kid in the band was playing to get rid of censorship. So I don't know why they wanted to make that narrative. I think it's possible because I'm running for governor. I think it's possible because raising 65,000 is seemingly 100% good, and you just can't have 100% good in a news story anymore. Who knows? But anyways, I just wanted to clear that up. No matter what you call it, a group that includes members of the Watertown Wind Symphony will be playing at our place on Saturday at 5 p.m. We're opening with an awesome professional band called the Brass Knuckles from 3 to 4:30, and we're opening the doors at 2 o'clock. And yes, you can buy beer. We're a brewery, and we'll be pouring beer for all those of age at the show. So that's all I want to talk about. Now let's run into the actual show. So the theme of today is to talk about election protection in Wisconsin, but to talk about it in a bunch of different ways, and to talk about how Wisconsin can defend itself against Trump. Not only in the upcoming election, but through other policies like taxation, through other policies like the environment. But it's all kind of looking through a lens of defense and going around the box and passing laws or passing executive orders like a governor would do to protect Wisconsinites from authoritarianism. Also, throughout the course of this podcast, we're going to talk about all of these things are going to need lots of money from the state of Wisconsin. And thank God, because we're in jeopardy. Our economy is in jeopardy. Our politics are in jeopardy. Thank God we have estimated $2.5 billion surplus that Tony Evers was not able to spend in a backroom deal and basically light a lot of it on fire in $300 checks to Wisconsinites that had no forward-looking plan on how to spend that money. And I'm going to tell you how to spend that money right now in lots of different ways. So first of all, let's talk about, once again, election protection. So this is the reason I got in this race. I got in this race because nobody was talking about it. I had conversations with both the Hong campaign and the Roy's campaign to ask them to talk about protecting our elections in the fall. They were non-committal, and then I got visited by the FBI and the Secret Service for simply speaking my mind on my social media accounts, and I was like, this is it. Like, these guys are going to be coming in guns a-blazing. They're already kind of leaning on me. Somebody's got to be talking about this. So we came out with a plan that I introduced last week. I didn't come up with it. Retired Army Colonel George Mason, who's a friend of mine, came up with this plan. He sent a letter with the plan to Tony Evers, Governor Tony Evers, and said, can you implement this plan to protect our elections? Because it's pretty obvious that Trump is going to do something. Now, let me read you a quote, by the way. This is not just me saying that I fear what Trump will be doing to our elections. Obviously, the entire South is being gerrymandered red right now to pick up more congressional seats because they want to cheat their way to hold on to the majority. But not only that, so Pritzker, Governor Pritzker from Illinois, who's been in the fight. Chicago in the Midwest. Chicago got hit first, and then the Twin Cities. But he's been battling, against ICE and against Trump. And I think he paraphrased Stephen Miller, who's like the Goebbels of the Trump regime. He said maybe they should just seize the ballot boxes with the military. Maybe they should go to where there's ballot boxes, and then they should count the votes themselves. That was Pritzker paraphrasing Stephen Miller. It's in broad daylight that these guys are probably going to do something with our ballots in November. So if it's in broad daylight, why is nobody in running for governor in Wisconsin talking about it? I have no idea. I do have an idea, and the idea is that somehow some consultant in the Democratic Party has told all these candidates that if you strike fear into the hearts of voters, Democratic voters, they might not show up, and it'll decrease turnout. And I think the exact opposite of this, and whatever groupthink is going on in the Democratic Party, I don't buy into it. I think that we have patriotic and stubborn, hardcore German and Scandinavian folks like me that would, over their dead body, would they not vote? But they need to be warned, and they need to have a plan, and we need to be prepared. So I want to prepare. So this is the plan, and it is, first of all, it's the Committee of Safety. George Mason Committee of Safety's history is that's what the colonists formed to make sure that Britain didn't mess with them too much. Okay, so Committee of Safety. All right, so first of all, we need to change our state's laws to call in with a felony for any armed federal agents within 100 feet of the polls. And then Attorney General Josh Kaul has to commit to immediate prosecution of these folks, like right off the bat. And then Governor Evers has to release an executive order to enforce this law. And so this is what I mean by that. Currently in the American Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, it says you can't go within 500 feet, or it's a code, U.S. Code 18. You can't go within 500 feet, but that's a U.S. code, and Trump could pardon those people who broke that law. New Mexico passed a state law that made it a state felony to do that. So Trump has no ability to pardon ICE agents who break a state law. So we need to make that a law. Right now, that's going to be hard because we have a Republican-led legislature, but Evers could make an executive order. They could take him to court on the executive order, but we have a progressive Supreme Court. So there is a way around it. And an Attorney General Josh Kaul could say, even if it's not a state law, this is what I will be doing. I will be putting all of my Justice Department attorneys around the polling places, and we will be arresting folks immediately if they get within the polls. Okay, that's the first thing. The second piece of the plan is number 4, my 4 and 5 point plan, is the National Guard. We got to activate Wisconsin Guard in the state. We got to make them, put them on active duty before November 3, which prevents Trump from calling up our own National Guard guys, to somehow help ICE, cause chaos in our elections, or take people away from the polls, or block the polls, or whatever. So he needs to call them, soon. You can call them for as long as you want, or at least before the election, or at least before Trump calls them. You also have to draft a legal defense to refuse Title X orders. So if Trump tries to call our National Guard to help ICE, we need to already have drafted a legal defense to immediately send that to a federal judge. I don't want to see that coming from Evers right now, Governor Evers. I don't want to just have him be on his heels and have the Justice Department be like flailing if this happens. He needs to have a plan and show it to Wisconsinites. Next, ballots. Pre-position legal teams at every county clerk's office 14 days pre-election. So those ballots are going to be printed, and they're going to be locked away somewhere, and we need to have legal teams that are monitoring those ballots, monitoring everything going on in those polling places, so that there is no malfeasance that happen within 2 weeks of the elections. And finally, if the FBI or anybody at the federal government level wants to look at our voter rolls or attacks our voter rolls or does any shenanigans with our voter rolls, we have to refuse no matter what. Even if there's a warrant, we have to refuse, and they have to send us to jail, and then let a judge sort it out later. But don't give them anything, even if they have documentation, because that's how Germany made Germany the Third Reich. Is they use their own laws to break the law and usurp democracy. All right, mobilization. We need a statewide election integrity day plus a paid media campaign. This is some of that where that extra money, the surplus money that Evers wasn't allowed to spend, should go. We need to spend a ton of money in marketing to change the minds of Wisconsinites, especially Republicans, who have been convinced by Trump and the Republican Party that our elections are not safe, because they are. We need to mobilize, go all over the state, even the rural areas, and make sure that we show people, introduce them to the county clerks, introduce them to the process, so that they are assured that our elections are safe and sound, and that no matter what Trump says the day after the election, it's not going to be true. Finally, we need to recognize the Committee of Safety, which is George's group and other groups. We have to recognize them as or pay more people to be election watchers, observer corps. This is not just being a poll watcher. This is taking the time now, between now and the election, to understand and get to know local law enforcement, to figure out who in the local law enforcement is on the side of democracy and who is on the side of Trump, and have a plan on who you call when shenanigans start happening. So that is the plan. I've said it before. This is a bit of a regurgitation of what I talked about, I believe, last week. But what we've done in this plan, what Sam has done, is we have sent a letter to all of the other Democrats running for governor. Brett Hulsey, Missy Hughes, Tim Jacobson, Sarah Rodriguez, Zach Roper, Kelda Roys, Joel Brennan, David Crowley. All the folks running for governor, both on the Republican, I think just on the Democratic side. And we have said, listen, this is the plan that we believe needs to happen in Wisconsin. And all of us are not going to be governor because we're going to be running for governor. So when this election violence might happen, we're going to not have a say at all. We shouldn't have a say because we're the ones that are vying for the top leadership role in the state of Wisconsin. So we should all sign this plan and demand that Governor Evers adopt it, or adopt parts of it, but do something with this thing. So I sent the letter yesterday, May 19th, to every other Democrat in the race, all 10 of them. And I said, let's sign this joint letter. To get Evers to do this. We are giving everyone until 5 p.m. Friday next week to join in with us on this letter so that we can send it en masse to Tony Evers. The goal is for all the other candidates to kind of sign with me. The goal is, I might be opposed to them in different issues, but I think we can all agree that we want our elections to be safe and sound and violence free. And I think we can all agree that Trump is going to do everything he can to make that not happen. So we should join together as candidates now and all be unified in demanding Evers start thinking about this and come up with a plan so we can see it. Okay, I think I've talked enough for this segment. We are going to go to a commercial because I've got to pay for this stuff somehow. And so I don't know what the commercial is going to say, but this says sponsored by Nope Sparkling Water. Here we go, Sam. Let's do it.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of Progressive Beer. The Monaco Brewing Company sells Progressive Beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy Progressive Beer, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC Hop Water. Zero alcohol, 0 calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC Hop Water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC Hop Water and Joint Session, our THC Orange Cooler, by going to thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. That's thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Brewing Company, who sells progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. The Monaco Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MonacoMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MonacoMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
Okay, folks, we are back. In the first segment, we talked about an election protection plan that I am hoping all of the Democratic governor candidates will sign and demand that Evers take some action now so that he can make sure Wisconsinites know what the plan is so that we can rest more. We can sleep better at night knowing that there's a plan and that our election is going to happen. Now, in this segment, I want to talk about Wisconsin is not a void in this. It's like, Trump is trying to gerrymander the entire South, but California has fought back, and Virginia has tried to fight back. And so every single governor in the country is thinking about this upcoming election. And even within the Midwest, we have, Gretchen Whitmer came out with this quote. She's the governor of Michigan. She said, ask whether she assumed that Trump forces would attempt to interfere with ballot counting. Whitmer said, it would be a mistake to assume that they're not going to. So I don't know precisely what it is that they might come up with, but we've got smart, sophisticated, savvy people around the tabletop that we will continue to get prepared. She said, when she was asked about fears that the Trump immigration crackdown deploying thousands of federal personnel into American cities would become a tool for controlling elections, Whitmer said, I don't think it's paranoia to have that concern. Pritzker quoted Stephen Miller saying that they're going to put armed military personnel in cities around ballots. Whitmer said it's not paranoia to assume that they might put armed personnel, ICE agents, around our polling places. It's two of the Midwestern governors that surround Wisconsin. So we have other governors thinking about this, and I don't think I've heard, right now, because I'm running for governor, I'm not as tuned in to what's going on in the legislature, because people are, we're not chummy because I'm in election mode right now. So I'm not hearing the latest going on in the legislature like I was before, but up until a couple weeks ago, before I ran, Evers I'm hearing that Evers has not been talking to other states' governors about what they're doing to protect their elections, and this is something that actually is has already started happening. So Governor Pritzker, what was it? Governor Pritzker in like November of last year started he started this thing called the Governors Safeguarding Democracy. So he started with Jared Polis from Colorado, who the goal of this is to share ideas, because Pritzker and Tim Walz are the governors that probably know most about how to protect their citizens from armed federal agents, because they had to do that already. So Pritzker's already started this organization where governors, Democratic governors, are sharing information with each other and are kind of unifying around what to do together. So there's completely an argument to be made that that we should form a Midwestern governors roundtable. We're going to call it, and this is our plan, we're going to call it the Great Lakes Democracy Compact. The Great Lakes Democracy Compact, which includes the Midwest, obviously Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan, who actually surround some of the Great Lakes. But it makes perfect sense because we're all led by blue governors. There's 54 electoral votes between us. There's 30 million people in the Midwest that we're talking about here. It's a block. Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota is what I'm talking about, because you got Tim Walz, Gretchen Whitmer. Tony Evers is the weakest out of all of them as a Democrat, because I don't think he talks to them all. He doesn't act strong about election protection. But we also have Pritzker in Illinois. Democratic blue governors all surrounding the Great Lakes. The goal is cybersecurity, sharing. There's got to be some smart people in that are making sure that the computer aspects of the election are safe. And so they got to be talking to each other. Like, Michigan shouldn't be the smartest one. And if they are, like, help us out, help Wisconsin out. So sharing our information about how the elections are protected, potentially sharing our National Guards, if they figure down the road that if ICE can just hammer away at like Madison, or Milwaukee, and then they can flip the entire U.S. Congress by just focusing on one state's populated areas. Let's get Illinois' National Guard, Michigan's National Guard, Minnesota's National Guard, all to help us and deploy to help make sure that the elections in our cities are working out, or vice versa. We can deploy and help Illinois, help Minnesota. We should be talking. The governors should be talking to each other. And also legal mutual aid. Like, all the lawsuits are going to be the same, and they're probably going to be filed against the federal government. So why wouldn't we have the attorney generals talking to each other, preparing lawsuits that are that can be filed immediately? So that's the plan is called the Great Lakes Democracy Compact, and so that's just to protect our elections. Now, are we gonna take a break? Yeah, let's take a break, and then we're gonna talk about even more about how we may need to protect our Great Lakes from not only Trump and protecting our democracy, but also from the onslaught of the oligarchs, which are trying to build AI data centers all throughout and using our water all throughout the Midwest. We'll get back to you after this quick break.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to Apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Minocqua Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Minocqua Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MinocquaMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. We get it. Your liver is under constant attack. Alcohol is a dictator that takes away your freedom. It distracts while doing its dirty work. It weakens your judicial system and governing bodies. If you give it too much power, you'll never be the same. We have the solution. 8647 THC hop water. Zero alcohol, zero calories, tastes like patriotism. 8647 THC hop water. Liberate your liver. Buy 8647 THC hop water and joint session our THC orange cooler by going to thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. That's thc.monacobrewingcompany.com. The Monaco Brewing Company is excited to partner with Brouhaha Coffee to create woke coffee. Get woke, go broke. That's what they say, right? Au contraire, mon frère. This gourmet coffee was awarded 2025 Roast of the Year at the Coffee Break Festival in Wisconsin, and it comes in both medium and dark roasts. Support our political action and enjoy fabulous coffee at the same time. For our Up North podcast listeners, go to the MonacoMarketplace.com, find coffee under the beverage tab, and type in Up North to get 10% off your order. That's MonacoMarketplace.com and use the promo code UpNorth.
Okay, folks, we are back with the Up North podcast. This is the third segment, and we're going to be talking about, we talked earlier about election protection. We have a plan. I want to get all the Democratic candidates to demand that Governor Evers start taking election protection seriously in Wisconsin. Secondly, we talked about making sure that the next governor of Wisconsin is working with, or not even the next, like Evers should be working with Minnesota, Illinois, and Michigan to be able to protect our elections jointly. And by the way, I'm leaving out Iowa, I'm leaving out Ohio, and I'm leaving out Indiana because they're run by Republicans, and they're not going to be interested in protecting our elections because they're already getting run roughshod by the Trump regime, and they're loyal to him, and so those states are already kind of election denial kind of states. So I'm focused on the four of us blue states right around the Great Lakes to work together. Let's talk about. Not only should we be working with the other states to protect our elections, we need to be working with these other states to protect us against the next onslaught. So the only reason Trump's in office is because the oligarchs helped put him there. So we got Peter Thiel, who owns J.D. Vance, and we got Elon Musk, who spent gazillions of dollars to get Trump elected. They all have invested gazillions of dollars in AI, and in order for AI to go to keep up with the pace that they are building it, and to keep up with the utilization of AI that's happening all over the globe, they need these huge data centers. And data centers, in order to be huge, take a lot of water. So, and guess where in America we have the most fresh water? It's the Midwest, the Great Lakes. And so in Wisconsin is not only, we're not only being inundated by these gazillionaire companies trying to build data centers in the Great Lakes. Michigan is too, Illinois is too. We're not only being inundated right now. We're not going to talk about it in this podcast because we're going to wait till next podcast. But because of climate change, the need for fresh water is going to be even more pronounced. Other states in America are going to get dried up because the planet is warming up. And when that happens, there's going to be mass migration to colder areas that have fresh water, which means Wisconsin is going to grow. And so we have a weird, we have an inflection point. We have these, oligarchs who got Trump into office, who would rather America be an autocracy so they could move faster, make more money. And they are steamrolling these small little towns in the Midwest to build these huge data centers at the very time that probably demand for fresh water will be rising as well. And the data centers are going to be taking it. So we're in it's a really dangerous time to be in the Midwest, and we have to have coordination. So all the other Democratic candidates are simply talking about, let's protect Wisconsin towns from AI. What I'm talking about is, let's make sure that governors of Wisconsin and the attorney generals are talking with all the other Great Lakes states to make sure that our biggest lakes that we all share, the Great Lakes, don't get depleted by data centers. So what does that mean in reality? So currently there already is like this big committee that takes there's already a big kind of group, that kind of multi-state group that talks about the Great Lakes. But let me back up, because there's another issue here. That committee, it's called the Great Lakes. What is that called? It is called the Great Lakes Defense Fund or something like that. But there's a group, and they get grants from the federal government to protect the lakes and protect the water. So the canary in the coal mine, that these grants have dried up. So there's a thing called Brandon Road, which is this like, I think it's this intercoastal area that connects like Illinois with like Michigan or something. And there was a $1.15 billion project to stop invasive carp from entering the Great Lakes. Trump publicly praised it on TV, but as he does all the time, his administration paused the funding in December of 2025. So $225 million that was previously appropriated to help keep invasive carp out of the Great Lakes, which is us. We all share it. And all of that money was withheld. $117 million to Illinois. The DNR was withheld. So we already see it happening. The group that's supposed to protect our water is being defunded by the federal government. And it's the Great Lakes Defense Fund is what this is called. So they're already defunding it, and if they're defunding it, it means that the people that are being paid to think about the issues that might happen to the Great Lakes are potentially being laid off. And so what's the huge thing that's going to be happening to the Great Lakes? Data centers. So now let's talk about what a real issue is for the Great Lakes in a data center. So in Wisconsin, there's a Microsoft Mount Pleasant facility in kind of Mount Pleasant is close to Racine, southeastern Wisconsin. They are trying to build a data center there that's going to be like 8 million gallons a year. That's bad. It'll take a lot of energy, and that's what kind of our politicians in Wisconsin are talking about. But that scale is not going to necessarily hurt the Great Lakes. But there's another one that will. And this one is in Michigan, in Saline Township, Michigan, which is an Oracle OpenAI data center, which is 1.65 million square feet across 3 buildings on a 21 square mile campus. The biggest single water use in the entire basin, which is the Great Lakes Basin. So what I'm talking about is this is happening in Michigan, but if they let it pass in Michigan, then it sucks the water out of Lake Michigan that we border on too. So we can't. I'm running for governor, so is everybody else. But if you're running for governor, you can't just talk about what do we need to do as a state to protect our Great Lakes, because we border with everybody else. So we have to be talking at a much higher level, and our plans have to be at a much higher interstate level to protect our Great Lakes. And so, here is kind of my bullet points of a plan. And obviously, everybody always makes promises when you're running for office. I've seen it a million times. Donald Trump is like the dumbest guy on the planet. So, obviously he doesn't know anything about a plan. He'll just read like bullet points. What you do if you're a good governor or a good leader is you hire really great experts to carry out all this stuff. So what I'm doing, and right now is just, the outline of what I think should happen. Obviously, there's a lot more detail that needs to go into it. But first, we have to create a permanent Great Lakes defense legal team under the Wisconsin Attorney General. And they have to work with other states. But we can't just be thinking about it at a state level, and not just at the governor level, the Attorney General too, and they have to come up with joint lawsuits to protect our waters. The Great Lakes Defense Fund needs to be funded. Yet another reason why we have a projected $2.5 billion surplus. We have to protect our elections. We have to protect our water. We have to beef up our own resources, government resources, to fight against the federal government. That is where we need to be spending our money to ensure that Trump's regime can't steamroll us. So we also we need to have a basin, every state has got to come together and create a cap on how much water that any data center can take out of Lake Michigan, called a basin-wide cap on hyperscale data center withdrawals. That's like the technical term for it. So I'm sure somebody's thinking about this, and it is way more scientific than me, but it could pretty much make sense if everybody's sucking water out and nobody's got any regulations on that, or they're polluting the water and they're putting it back in. We got to start regulating this. We haven't seen the levels of water that these data centers are ever going to use. We have to have anticipatory injunctions against Western Division proposals. So this is other states that are not in the Midwest, like Arizona, they're already dry. So it's going to be a fight for fresh water, and I could just see some state, going around one Great Lakes state and making buddies with one and using different water and pipelining different water away. Obviously that could be a recipe for disaster. So we got to work together and make sure that doesn't happen. Climate migrant infrastructure surge. We're going to talk about that next week. We're going to be needing more water because we're going to have a lot of people moving to Wisconsin when it gets too dry to live in other parts of America. And then obviously no matter what you do, you have to talk to the tribes. In Wisconsin, the tribes have been the best folks to help preserve our lands. They keep on suing against pipelines that are dangerous. They keep on suing against sulfide mining, which happens in my neck of the woods. They have been the best to protect our environment in Wisconsin, and obviously anything we do has to be in consultation with them. Okay, Sam, let's go to a break, and we'll come back and talk about some taxes in a little bit.
Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk & Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of the money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of Progressive beer. The Monaco Brewing Company sells Progressive beer all throughout Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, and online to about 30 states. Never seen it? That's likely because we've been banned by distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy Progressive beer, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click the Retail Locations tab. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Retail Locations. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Marketplace, or what we like to call the Amazon for progressives. Every product sold on the Monaco Marketplace is made by a company that's pledged to never donate money to the MAGA movement. There's over 60 companies on our marketplace, and we sell everything from nuts to detergents to doormats. Save democracy with your wallet by shopping only at MonacoMarketplace.com. For Up North podcast listeners, save 10% on any order in the store by going to MonacoMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MonacoMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth. The Up North podcast is sponsored by the Monaco Brewing Company, who sells Progressive beer online across the country. If you like the show today, please consider buying one of our beer subscription packages for yourself or a loved one. You can subscribe to the Democrat, the Liberal, and the Progressive, which delivers four packs of beer to your door for 6 months, a year, or 2 years. To find where you can subscribe to get Progressive beer delivered to your door every month, go to MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. That's MonacoBrewingCompany.com and click Progressive Beer. Believe it or not, this podcast takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make Kirk and Company look like they know what they're doing. And a lot of money that goes to pay our producers and editors comes from the sale of our progressive t-shirts. The Minocqua Brewing Company sells t-shirts to supplement our beer sales because we've been banned by beer distributors for our unapologetically progressive voice. To find where you can buy our t-shirts, go to MinocquaMarketplace.com and go to apparel. For Up North podcast listeners, get 10% off on all of our merch by going to MinocquaMarketplace.com and typing in promo code UpNorth. That's MinocquaMarketplace.com, promo code UpNorth.
Okay, folks, we are back. Sam, my producer, did a little bit of research while we were gone to get a few more stats. So I just talked about how the governor of Wisconsin should be working with the other governors around the Great Lakes to make sure that we're protected against the oligarchs who are looking to build data centers and use all this water all around us. And Sam just found that first of all, the Alliance for the Great Lakes is the group that kind of meets to protect the Great Lakes. But there's also a thing called the Great Lakes Protection Fund that currently apparently only has $3.5 million as part of its mission, which for something so important, it seems like that's nothing, for talking about how to protect the Great Lakes from data centers. So it needs to be way more funded. We obviously could chip in to do that with the huge surplus that we were just able to not let Evers spend in a backroom deal with Robin Voss. Okay, now let's talk about one last thing. So next week, I cut off two topics. When you run for governor, everybody wants to know your plan right away. I've been talking about different policy stuff that I like to see in Wisconsin for 5 years. So I've written it all, but it's all disparate. There's no actual booklet, on a website or anything. But we'll get there eventually. But we were spending most of our time getting on the ballot right now and getting nomination forms signed because I started so late. So, but I will once a week talk about different policy issues that I think are thinking outside of the box and are very necessary for the state of Wisconsin. So next week, we're going to talk about universal health care in Wisconsin, and we're going to talk about housing because we got to fix universal health care, obviously, and housing is going to go through the roof when the rest of the country warms up and people start coming to Wisconsin for fresh water and to not be roasting, because of climate change. So I'm going to talk about that next week. I'm going to end this podcast, though, talking about something that I've been alluding to in some of my some speeches where we've been trying to get people to sign my nomination forms. But I was kind of talking about what I'd like to see happen, but I didn't dig into the actually how it would happen. So we did some more research, and I wanted to introduce this no taxation without representation kind of plan. So first of all, what am I talking about? Obviously, this was something that was done, in the cause of the Revolutionary War is that Britain taxed the colonists, even though the colonists didn't have any representation in British Parliament. That's happening now in America. Put up that slide. So in Wisconsin, we just had two floods, one last October in Milwaukee and another one a couple of weeks ago in northeastern Wisconsin, Appleton, Shiocton, New London area. There was $34 million of damage, and we haven't, and Trump won't give us any damage relief because Evers is a blue governor. He's done the same things to other states who vote blue. The UW-Madison federal research grants, there's $120 million at risk that has been cut off during the Doge kind of. They cut off all that money to UW-Madison. That there's a whole that's cancer research. It's a lot of money that was cut off simply because of politics. The SNAP education program killed $3 million a year is another one that was big. Total annual Wisconsin exposure is $157 million a year. We said we had a projected budget surplus of $2.5 billion. it seems very obvious that while Trump is still alive, and I've always made fun of that because we're going to give free beer the day that doesn't happen, because a lot of this will end. A lot of our national nightmare will end. But until we can get him out and his regime out, we are underfunded because we're missing dollars from the federal government. So we need to backfill that. We have a surplus. This is what we should be backfilling, because we're not getting that money anymore from the federal government. And hopefully when we take him out, by voting against him and his regime, we'll get that money back. So this would be a good time to backfill the things that are not currently happening with the federal government so we can maintain continuity. But that being said, why would we be paying federal taxes to the federal government when they're withholding those taxes back to us when there's a flood? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense that we should be funding our abusers, or funding, or ICE comes and disappears people. Our federal dollars pay for ICE. Why would we be defunding that? So there's a guy named Chris Armitage, and he writes in Substack. You can take the graph down, Sam. There's a guy named Chris Armitage that is he's a great thinker, great outside the box thinker. He writes on Substack. He writes for the Existentialist Republic, I believe. And he wrote a whole article on, can we really, how states can avoid paying federal taxes. So first of all, this is his idea. It's not my idea, but I'm going to lay it out. First of all, what you would do is you would pass a law that forces all employers who currently pay your taxes, for you to the federal government to redirect those tax dollars to a state-controlled escrow account. And that escrow account would only release those tax dollars to the federal government if an independent body looked and decided that that the U.S. government was upholding its bargain with the state and upholding the Constitution of the United States. This is actually this idea is not new, and in fact, it was proposed by MAGA back in 2010 when they thought that Obama was going to take all their money for the Affordable Care Act or whatever. So this was actually proposed as Washington House Bill 2712, 2010, proposed a federal tax escrow account in the Washington Treasury with a legislative panel reviewing federal spending for the constitutional compliance. It died in committee, which means that it never was nobody ever sued to see if this would pass or not, would pass muster from the Supreme Court. Now, here are the reasons why it could be illegal, and here are the reasons why it might not be illegal. And it really depends on who your judges are. So first of all, Article 6 in the U.S. Constitution is called the Supremacy Clause, which basically says that any laws that the United States make can kind of supersede laws that the individual states make. It's Cooper versus Aaron, 1958. So that's obviously, paying federal taxes. If there's a law that says you have to pay federal taxes, a state necessarily, you could make the argument that a state just can't pay them. However, there's another. That's the argument against doing what we're saying doing. But the argument that potentially allows states to potentially do this escrow thing is called Prince versus United States, 1997. And it says the federal government cannot conscript state administration. And so I think the argument there is that like the federal government, by, withholding or by not giving us services forces the states to do stuff that they're supposed to do. And that's against the law. it's getting into the weeds, but there is arguments to be made that if we try to do this and it gets taken to court, there is a path to potentially win. But let's back up out of the weeds and let's talk about something that we all know about that suggests the federal government, can't force the states to do certain things. So the federal government right now has a law against cannabis, against smoking weed. There are a ton of states who have legalized cannabis throughout the country. So there is a case to be made that, if enough states do it, the federal government doesn't have the teeth to stop them from doing it. And so if enough blue states who Trump has cut all the funding from because they're blue, and he's going in there and using federal agents to harm their citizens, if they all kind of get together, the governors kind of have to shake hands and all think outside the box here. But if they all get together and they agree that they're going to hold all of their federal excise taxes in escrow and not pay them until Trump stops abusing us, we could potentially bring Trump to his knees. But it's got to take people running for office or current governors to be able to stick their necks out a bit and to be able to be willing to get sued. This stuff is it's legally gray, but think about what Trump has done for the last 2 years. Everything that he does is blatantly illegal or legally gray, and his strategy is to just do it, ask questions later, let the courts settle it, but while the courts are working on it, he's harming people, or he's skimming, or he's sucking money out of the treasury into his own back pocket. So it's crazy to think that when you got a guy so slippery like Trump, who sues first and asks questions later, or does first and gets sued, but continues to abuse the system, that you wouldn't meet him there. So you need governors who are willing to potentially play fast and loose with the rules, and hopefully that resists enough to keep us from being harmed while inflation is going up, while gas prices are going up, while the economy is going to hell, and while our rights are being trampled on. So that is the no taxation without representation plan. There's more guts to it than I've talked about previously. Lots of folks say, well, you can't just not pay your taxes. Well, I just gave you a plan that suggested we could as an organized bunch of blue states. Okay, folks, that's all I got for you today. We're going to chop this up into clips and send that out to people tomorrow on Substack so that people can hear what my actual plans are, how I am trying to separate myself from other candidates. I'm an ideas guy, and I'm not going to be going around to all the Democratic parties in counties throughout Wisconsin. I have to run a company. I don't think you need that, because we have technology. I'm reaching 500,000 people right now. So this is how I plan to run my campaign, full of ideas, full of suggestions of what I would do that differentiate myself from the other Democratic candidates. Obviously, the Republican candidate, Tom Tiffany, we don't even need to talk about him. He's a rubber stamper for Trump. He is, I call him Viceroy Tiffany, because he's like Viceroy to Emperor Palpatine in the Star Wars. The guy would roll over democracy as soon as Trump said roll it over. So I don't even talk about him, because he is Trump. We got to fight against Trump. We don't have to worry about Tom Tiffany. All right, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. I will see you again next Tuesday and Wednesday for office hours on Tuesday and Up North podcast on Wednesday. I'll see you in Madison this Saturday with members of the Watertown Wind Symphony. And it's going to be a glorious day, and I hope to see a lot of you there. Thanks so much for listening.